Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Fancy Gee. Gee here. A little bit of a different camera angle, but still not gooey though. So today we're going to be talking about what we actually said in the last video. I was a little bit of generic into what we were going to do today, and today we're going to be talking about tests. So we want to make sure that this command line interface is going to be, usable, and stances that might happen to it, right? So I haven't changed anything since last video, and we still have the same price command in here, and it still does some weird things in this. So before fixing this, I would like to actually take a step back and look into tests of things that can actually happen with this. So to do that, I'm going to be using Python's unit tests library, which is default after Python 3, I believe. You can fact check me on that. But I believe that's about it. So it's out of the box. You don't have to worry much about that. So the way that I usually like to do this is to actually create a new folder called tests. And in there, I would create a file for the tests that I'm going to run. So I would do actually fancy wallet, which is the name of this command line interface, get price tests.py. So this is specifically to get price, right? So whenever we're going to create different tests for different purposes, I'm going to create different files for those. And in here, there are three things that I'm going to have to import. So from Click itself, there is a testing library that give us a test, not a test case, but rather a CLI runner. So this is going to give us an environment to actually run our command line interface during our tests. So it's going to simulate everything for us. And from Python itself, so Python, Jesus Louise, no. So we have to import from the default libraries, right? From the out-of-the-box libraries, unit tests. So the library to actually run tests with. And from our CLI itself, which is fancy wallet, we need to import our CLI. So fancy wallet, not whale. My bad, fancy whale's the company. Fancy wallet. From fancy wallet, import fancy wallet. Awesome. And this is lowercase. So now that this is all wired up, let's start to define our tests, shall we? So for that, we need to define our class of tests to run. So fancy wallet, get price tests, right? Tests. And this is a unit test case type of class. So those are going to be the test cases that we're going to be running actually. And in here, each test that we're going to define is going to be a function. So it's going to be a self-defined function. So in here, let's try to test if we get the get price for Tesla. So, a simple test, we've already run Tesla. And let me show you here in the terminal itself. This should be just, fancy wallet, get price Tesla. And I put it in uppercase here. So this might be interesting. I put it in uppercase. What if I put it in lowercase as well? So it might be another use case for us to test. And in here, we're just going to, try to run that Tesla test case. So the way that we do that, we actually go into get a new runner from our CLI. So it's the CLI runner. So we create a new runner. And in the runner, we pass along what we want to run for our CLI. So we invoke it. We invoke fancy wallet, and we would pass along the arguments like we would in a command line interface. So we pass those along here as a array of arguments. So that is going to be get, and then price, and then Tesla. And then this is going to be lowercase because we want to test if lowercase or uppercase is ever going to be different, right? And we're going to grab here the result of this. So this is going to be a result of invoking my command line interface. I'm hoping that to be a number and not to throw any errors. So that's the important part for us. Because actually, if it doesn't work right now, it just throws a random error. It's just, it's an exception that we are not treating right now. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to do, self, because this is a class, So self, I am gonna say self assert that the result dot exit code equals 0. So what I mean here is that there's not going to be an error. So whenever there's an error happening in your command line interface, it's going to throw some sort of exit error. So it's going to be a 127. It's going to be, we can talk about error codes later, but what we're looking for here is something 0. So it means that it worked. And by doing that, I just assert if my test is going to work or not. Awesome. And now that we have lowercase, let's do an uppercase. So we know our command line interface should work for both. So upper. Awesome. And in here, we should put Tesla in uppercase. Awesome. All right, let's wire this up and see how it works. So Visual Studio Code, we can use the command palette, which is Command-Shift-P in macOS or Ctrl-Shift-P in Windows. Again, not really sure, it's been a while, but we can configure our tests here. So we can just type configure tests, and we're going to select unit tests, which is the folder, and underscore test, which I did wrong, honestly. It should not be tests, but rather test, the name of the file. I apologize for that. So now this is all wired up, and all right. And now we have all the tests wired. I want to make sure also that if we run this, if we run this tests here on my command line interface, that I can actually call it from a command line. So it's going to be nice to have once we actually run this from a pipeline to actually distribute this command line interface. So in here, I can just do unit tests main. So this is going to wire everything up for us and convert this to an actual runnable test file for us. So if we want, we can run this as Python and then run not this guy, but rather, no, not this guy here. It's going to be for a later video. That's going to be fun. But rather, tests, fancy will, not fancy wallet tests, but fancy get price tests. So what it does here, it actually runs our test for us, and it throws the error of what is actually happening in the command line interface for us. And right now it's actually asserting equal, and this is my mistake. It's a silly mistake. So this is asserting if both arguments are equal. So instead of equals equals, I was actually evaluating for it, but I just needed to do this. So a first and a second arguments, they have to be equal. So if I run this again, guess what? It's all okay. It means that our command line interface, it works as it should for lowercase and uppercase Tesla. Now, let's say we do something crazy, right? So let's say we can get and just grab the price for QJEHFLA. Wow, no. It's going to just throw this crazy error for us, isn't it? Because it's going to try to query the information from a object that is empty. So let's treat this out, shall we? So let's create a new test, which is going to be a test get price unknown. Oops. Unknown. There we go. And that's going to be just, a crazy company called Unknown. Hopefully there's none in the stock market, but and then we're just going to call that company here on the argument. So now what we're getting from here is this should actually throw an exit code. So we need to assert that not equal, so that the exit code is not equals to 0, and that the assert equal. And what I'm expecting here as well is something different as well, that the output, so what it actually comes out, right, whenever I type things, so whatever comes out is like when I tell Tesla, the output is this 606 in a new line. So I want that. So I want this output here to be that company, and then the name of the company, not found. There we go. As easy as that. So now I'm expecting that it is going to throw an error, and that I am throwing an error that is comprehensible to the person that is reading my command line interface. As simple as that. So now, as if I run this test again, and right now I'm not going to use the command line interface to run the test, but rather the test explorer here for Python. And if I run this, guess what? There's going to be a 1 error in here. And it's probably because my output, it's probably not, it's actually, that's the reason. It's because my output here is this crazy stack here, the stack trace. So we need to now treat our CLI, our code actually, to pass this text, to pass this test. So guess what? We're just doing test-driven development. Fear not, my friends. Tests are not, monsters. They're here to help. So let's do that. So in here then, what we have to do is that whenever I get to his result, that I actually have to figure out if the company was found or not. So to do that, I can just grab the result and then the status code. There are better ways of doing that. I can do that later, but to make this video short, and we're running already at 11 minutes here on my recording, I'm just going to look at the status code. So if the status code is 404, which is the response for not found, I am just going to throw that error and then exit right here, right? So if the status code is 404, so if there's actually, if the company that was sent over is not found, I am gonna just output this error here, right? So I'm gonna just use click echo. And this is the reason that we use click echo instead of print, because then our CLI runner can actually grab that output for us to actually assert that later. It's one of the reasons, there are more. And now we can just, print this out. And right now, I'm not going to talk about the error codes exactly, but all we have to do is actually exit our command line interface with an error that is not 0. So 404 here, it is not what's supposed to be, but we can talk about that thing later. So now if I run this here for a crazy company, it just outputs company Tesla ID not found, which is great. Oh, and a new line, so I have to ensure that I have a new line in here as well. So now if I try to assert that these are equal, so the output is that, guess what happens? It passes. So now all of our tests are all good. I can just keep running those, and if I change my code and I break the expected output, my tests are going to tell me, which is going to help us quite a lot to distribute this and ensure that if somebody gets in here and tries to develop and make our code better, they're not going to break, the use cases that we actually want to work. So the 3 use cases here that I defined, the unit tests that I've defined, they have to always pass. And that's all I had for today, guys. Next time, I'm actually going to show you how to use everything that we've done so far, put our code in GitHub, and actually distribute using PyPI, and people can actually just install it using pip. All right, that's great. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and see you in the next one. Bye.